Hi there, this is Suresh Raghavan, and I'm doing this after a long break, and so I thought it's about time to talk again about .in and .coin for India. Uh, 2017 has been a very interesting year for the domain industry, and in many ways, we saw a lot of things happen in the last 4 or 5 years with the introduction of new GTLDs. The CCTLDs, which .in is, was introduced in 2005, and the but I think that the industry has taken a while to understand the impact of CCTLDs in the market, in the overall market. And now, with all these thousands of new GTLDs that have been introduced, there was a lot of confusion in the last 4 or 5 years. I think that is settling down. People are finally realizing where new GTLDs can be applied and where CCTLDs can be applied. We always had the .com, and that's not going away. But from the Indian market standpoint, when people ask me how do you value domain names, one of the first things I think about is the overall Indian market. Whether it's the automotive market, whether it's a market for furnitures, a market for electronics, it doesn't matter. I think the overall market in India is on the upward trajectory, right? So recently I looked at being in Detroit. I do have an affinity to look at automotive markets, and in general, automotives or cars are the second biggest purchase somebody makes after a home, and at least in the U.S. Now in India, obviously, people spend a lot of money on gold as well. So, but cars are a big part of your purchase in India. So if you look at the future of the automotive market, it's a very interesting telltale sign. One of the reports saw recently was in about 10 years or 12 years, 2030, India is going to have about 12 million passenger vehicles. Okay, now where does that put India with respect to China and the US and Europe? 12 million vehicles roughly in 2030 is a pretty good number. And if you look at the automotive market in Germany, UK, France, Italy, and Spain, the five large countries in the European continent, the concept is India's market is going to be bigger than all those five combined in the automotive segment, right? In passenger vehicles. So that's a very good telltale sign. And the reason I point that out is if automotive is going to be that big, guess where other products are going to be, So you look at all the other consumer products in India, commercial products. So you can use your imagination. About 20 years ago, when I was working in the auto industry, similar reports came out about China, right? And at that time, China was probably making 1 million vehicles a year, and people were very suspicious. They weren't sure about Chinese automotive market. 20 years later, today, China's auto market is twice that of the United States or North American market. So that's a huge change. And I see very similar signs in India where, you can look at those numbers and you can say, is that going to happen? There's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts about it. But at the end of the day, India's got a huge population. Incomes are rising. And the desire to have cars is always going to be there. And so the concept of 10 million or 12 million cars in India is not it's not something that we can, it's not unfathomable, right? It's easily possible. That's probably what I'm getting to here. So that's the market in India, right? So anytime somebody comes up and asks me about a domain name, one of the first things I put out there is the Indian market. And with India's growing market, the potential to have for domain names increases as the market increases in India for any product segment you take. So that's the one part I wanted to cover. The other part I want to talk about was CCTLDs, which is IN and COIN for India, and for England it's .uk, .co.uk. For Germany it's .de. For Canada it's .ca. And if you look at where does .in, COIN fit in with .com? I mean, that's a good question a lot of people have. And my suggestion is to look at the recent report by an organization called Center from Europe. And in the latest report, they've shown that the distribution of the CCTLDs in Europe versus .com is about 59% of the owners, domain owners, own CCTLDs versus 39% of .com. So that's a telltale sign. I think India has potential to follow that European model, wherein .in or .coin combined will probably reach those levels, versus .com will slide back into a second position in India. And this is based on the fact that if you just look at availability of domain names, you can pretty much project that there's going to be more available IN and COIN domains of good quality, versus .com is there are already 130 million .coms out there in the marketplace, and the number of new .coms that's out there that's of good quality is less. And so you do have options of buying .coms for your business. That option always exists. But the real question will become, what exactly works in India? You know, if .in and .coin works in India, then why bother with a lower quality .com domain name? I'm not suggesting that you don't get your .com, but your primary domain name for India could be an IN or a .coin. And we already, I was in India this summer, and I noticed a lot more ads in newspapers, in banners, with .in or .coin, much more than I've seen in the previous years. So that's a sign that I'm beginning to see a lot more of those showing up, and the quality of the domain names is a lot better. So you can make your own conclusions. This is just my viewpoint. But so given that concept, you know, how CCLDs are going to be, it's already being shown in Europe, you know, where .de and .co.uk are already preferred by the businesses there. You know, just think about logically. If I'm looking for a business, business in India, and the website says .com, versus your competitor has a .in or .coin, it's, for me, it's easy to say that IN and COIN are located in India. So it makes it a lot more easy to find and understand that you're located in India. So, and you can always cater to the global market using those two extensions. So that much for the CCTLD discussion versus the .com. And again, in those things, you have to understand that in the world of targeting your audience, it's a lot of it is about keywords. You know, depending on your business, what keywords are huge in your business. So it always comes down to keywords and what you can acquire. You can acquire the .in keyword or acronym, or .coin keyword acronym, versus a .com. Clearly, .com is going to be priced at a different level, and we'll talk in a moment. I want to cover that aspect as well in terms of pricing and how that works. So that was that part. Now let's talk about pricing. You know, talking about pricing of domain names. One of the things you would notice is, at least recently, there's some trend in the way domains are being priced. You would see that .couk, .de for Germany are all good comparisons for .coin and .in, for example. So if you follow those prices of typical similar domain names in UK and DE are being priced at, you would see a trend there. And typically, you're beginning to see the price ratio, if you compare that to .com, roughly in the 20 to 25% range. Now, is the price for .in or .coin there? We don't have enough data yet, public data. So sales data for these domains, because the IN market is still in a very early stages. But I think we're beginning to see some recent sales in this year, in 2017. You can go to a website called namebio.com, and you would see they have all the data for public sales. So those public sales that have been provided for IN and COIN, you can see that two-word domain names, when I say two-word keyword domain names, are being sold in the roughly the $1,000 to $5,000 range. And that's an interesting scenario, because usually domain names, one-word domain names, in my experience, if you look at different keywords, they're generally about 100 times what two-word domains go for. So those are very interesting telltale signs for COIN and IN domains. So best way to look at it is go to NameBio and search for different keywords, or search for sales in IN and COIN. You'll find some sales data that's interesting. And so that was that part. The other part was when I'm talking about namebio.com, if you look at the recent sales history in the last year, I looked at .co UK, and there was about 100 domains listed as sold from May to December. And .in, COIN combined, about 50 names were sold during the same time period. So what I'm saying is the IN and COIN isn't too far behind .uk, and give it a couple of more years, and I think there's going to be enough public sales out there for people to start comparing the prices and to have a good sense of an idea for where .in is in terms of the overall market. So that's now talk about pricing domain names, and how do you look at top, let's say, typically I talk about top 100 domains versus top 1,000 versus a top 10,000 domain name. What is a top 10,000 domain name? Top 10,000 domain name is typically domains which have commercial value. Things that have domains that have actual use in the marketplace. In India, for example. Some of the factors you can look into for that is look at the price history for similar keywords using NameBio, or you can go to VeriSign. They have a tool called Domain Scope that shows you a popularity of the keyword in terms of how many .coms are being registered for that particular keyword. So that's a good tool. Other than that, you can use Google Search and Google Trends. And if you know, Google AdWords is the biggest online advertising platform. So that's a good way to measure as well, because the more your competitors are using AdWords to promote their products on Google, these keywords the bids for these keywords are going to go up. So if you have 2 competitors versus 5 competitors versus 10 competitors for the same keyword, for example, if you're in the furniture industry, and the word furniture, if you want to own the word furniture, you have furniture.in or furniture.coin options for India. Furniture.com as well, but obviously the pricing is going to be very different for furniture.com. So in short, you have to understand the many keywords and acronyms that your industry uses, and eventually there's going to be competition for all those keywords and acronyms. So you can take any industry, whether it's furniture industry, the car industry, whether it's gold and jewelry industry. So imagine all the keywords that exist in your industry, and there's going to be competition for those words, whether it's domain names, whether it's one word, 2 words, because the other way to look at it is If you worked in the world of trademarks and patents, for example, large companies, when they file a patent for a particular product idea, they usually don't go with one patent. They usually go with one patent, and then they go patent around those core idea. So they generally have at least 10 maybe patents around the main idea. And so that's very similar to domain names. You don't generally have one domain name. Large companies, you look at many large corporations around the world, they own thousands of domain names usually. And they might have hundreds of products, but they usually have thousands of domain names to cover different products they own. Not just brandables, but generic domain names. When I say generic, they're like car, furniture, home, loans, things like that. So that's another strategy to think about. If you're a business catering to India and would like to understand more about this, feel free to reach out to me. You can look me up on LinkedIn directly at suresh.coin, and I'm available to provide any help you need or direction. A little bit of my history before I finish up. I started domaining in 1998. It feels like a long time ago. It is 20 years next year. So it'll be I think right about April of 98 when I first started registering .com domains. So this is purely my opinion, and I would encourage you to do your own research to understand how these domain names play a vital role in how your products are going to be marketed in India. So with that, I close up this short talk on domain names. It's been a while since I've done this, so it was good to get back out there and convey my thoughts on 2017, and wish you all a very happy New Year and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Thank you very much.